You did not hear me. Never mind then. Okay. Timing is everything. Jim, what is the key to comedy? Timing. Timing is the key to comedy. Okay. Okay, so what I want to do tonight in place of Eddie's class, I'm not going to teach Joshua. I'm going to try to pull the gospel out of Genesis chapter 23. An impossible task, I know, but we're going to see if it's possible. Been studying this class for a while and see if I can pull it off tonight so that you can use it as a tool also to share with your chatty neighbors. And you will know that they do not know something like this, most likely. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to develop the context by reading, and we're going to figure out what we're seeing or imagining in our minds and hearts. Okay? Okay. Sarah lived 127 years. And these were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died at Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And Abraham rose up from before his dead and said to the Hittites, I am a sojourner and foreigner among you. Give me property among you for a burying place, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. The Hittites answered Abraham, Hear us, my Lord, you are a prince of God among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. None of us will withhold from you his tomb to hinder you from burying your dead. Abraham rose and bowed to the Hittites, the people of the land. And he said to them, If you are willing that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and entreat me for me, Ephron, the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he owns. It is at the end of his field. For the full price, let him give it to me in your presence as property for a burying place. Now Ephron was sitting among the Hittites, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the Hittites, of all who went in at the gate of his city. No, my Lord, hear me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. In the sight of the sons of my people, I give it to you. Bury your dead. Then Abraham bowed down before the people of the land. And he said to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, But if you will hear me, I give the price of the field. Accept it from me, that I may bury my dead there. Ephron answered Abraham, My Lord, listen to me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? Bury your dead. Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out for Ephron the silver that he had named in the hearing of the Hittites. 400 shekels of silver, according to the weights current among the merchants. So the field of Ephron in Machpelah, which was to the east of Mamre, the field with the cave that was in it, and all the trees that were in the field throughout its whole area, was made over to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the Hittites before all who went in at the gate of his city. After this, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah, east of Mamre, that is, Hebron, in the land of Canaan. The field and the cave that is in it were made over to Abraham as property for a burying place by the Hittites. Okay, the first thing that I want, there's about 3 parts of negotiations, it seems like, with the Hittites. Now, the first thing I want to do is get your responses to your hearing of what we just read and what you noticed or what you think stood out in the reading of chapter 23. Can anyone give me a reaction or a response?
The Hittites were offering it to him free, and he wanted to pay for it.
Yeah, the Hittites were offering it, say, hey, go ahead, take it. And he says, no, I'm going to pay for it. That is, I believe that is a key aspect of this text for a reason. Yeah, very good, Hilton.
There was a deep mutual respect between the Hittites and Abraham.
Okay, a deep mutual respect between Abraham and the Hittites. Yes, I believe there was. You have one?
I won't let my friends who own businesses or services that I patronize give me a discount that I don't think is fair because I value what they do.
Okay.
It demonstrates that I don't value them if I try to get a better price.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So if you value like somebody, like I'm summarizing or analogizing for Eric. When I go to Donut Makes up in Somerville every morning. No, I don't go every morning. I'd like to. They're very kind. They know my name. It's like, the show. Everybody knows your name. Okay. So when I go in, they're like, hey, Ty, you want the same thing? Yeah, I want the same thing. And so I always value and I always give them a tip. On most of those little monitors, they ask everybody now is like, you want to tip us even though we didn't do anything for you? Tip us, right? So I tip them because I value them. And so I won't allow them to necessarily give me discounts even though I have like 10 lattes, free lattes saved up. Okay, Mike.
When you was reading out, and when I've heard this before, I always wonder why it was a big deal for him to keep these dead bones,
Oh,
close to him. I mean, the people are not there anymore,
right.
So what's the deal with
Yeah. Okay.
carrying where their bones are at, right?
Right. Okay. Yes. Yes. Sarah is going to be buried there. Who else is going to be buried there? Abraham. Who else? Joseph. Rebecca, Isaac, and Rebecca. I don't know if Jacob, Leah, maybe Eric.
It just reminds me when David insists on paying for the threshing floor. He says that will not be the sacrifice that costs me.
Find that passage, please. Find that passage. We're going to use that passage that Eric just mentioned about David. Huh?
It ends up also being where the temple was built.
Yes, it ends up being where the temple is built. The plot thickens. So if you didn't hear what Eric said, there's David and the threshing floor, and there's going to be a price that he demands that he purchases, right? So Eric's going to find that text. 2 Samuel, I think it's 8 maybe.
It's the 24. It's the very end of 2 Samuel.
Yeah, right after he did the census that he should have done.
Okay. Okay, so keep that in mind because we're going to hit that. Okay? Did you hear what I said, Jim? Okay, we're gonna keep that passage in mind. 2 Samuel chapter 24. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, because David is going to purchase a threshing floor, which is where the temple will eventually be built. Okay, and he refuses, like you said, to take it, from them. What else did you notice? Anything else that you notice repeated? Ad nauseum. Bury your dead, right? What else? Abraham bowed down. Okay, yes, he was very respectful. That was a typical thing. Yes?
Curious Arba or Saradai comes up several other times in the preceding in the next books of the Old Testament.
Yes, Kiriath Arba. I think it's something to do with 4, but I don't know the significance of that. Yes?
When you buy property, there's a deed, and the deed gives the larger property to the next, they get to the property that you're purchasing. So there's a complete description of the property.
A complete
It's
description.
kind of like a legal
Yes.
binding kind of agreement that's occurring.
Right, yeah. There's a description of the property and a boundaries. Yeah.
Complete description, including the trees.
Yes, very good, very good. Cindy.
He keeps saying the field in Machpelah near Mamre, both the field and the cave in it, and all the trees. He says that at least 3 times.
Right, the field in the field in the cave, the field in the cave, the field in the cave, the field in the cave. Okay, there's something else. There's a name of a group of people he repeats a lot. Hittites. Okay, so later on that's going to be a factor with Israel and the Hittites, right? Uriah was a Hittite. Very good. And so you have something key there we're going to talk about. Any other observations? It's not like I'm trying to get you to say that there's a bunch more, but there is a bunch more, but I can't remember them all myself. Okay, anybody notice where who else's name is mentioned? Who's a key name here in the passage besides Abraham, obviously? Ephron. Okay, Mike, I got a task for you as we go through here. Can you look up the meaning of Ephron's name? The meaning of Ephron's name, and maybe the source where it came from. Okay, and then there's one other thing. If you have smartphones and you want to play along, you can do this. Look up the Greek word for paradise, like when the thief on the cross says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus says, I tell you, today you'll be with me in paradise. Look up the origin, etymology of the word paradiso, and that's going to be important. Okay? Okay, very good. You guys are doing excellent because we're setting the scene for what is being told by a biblical author who is weaving a lot of wordplay and symbolic images from earlier passages, like we talked about Kiriath Arba and other things, weaving those into this story. And it's not something that probably any of us read probably in the last several years, except maybe for Bible Bowl, right? No one goes, hey, you know how significant Genesis 23 is? No one holds a sign up at football games or, Genesis 23, right? No one does that. We should do that. And they'll be like, those are nutball people. But at least we'll get their attention, right? As, crazies. So here you have this idea of Sarah is what? Deceased. Very polite. And it is repeated in Genesis 23 that she is dead. Okay? So here we have Let's go through it again, and I'm going to try to narrate and comment. And then when we get to verse 10, we're going to talk about whatever you may have found. And then we still have, Jim, what is the passage that Eric wanted us or gave to us that we want to remember? 2 Samuel chapter 24. Very good. Keep that in mind. Yes, Eric.
How Israelites carried Joseph's bones out of Egypt 400 years
400.
later. Somebody's job it was to keep that duffel bag of bones carried through the desert for 40 years.
Okay. Very interesting.
Taking care to properly do that was very, very important.
Yes. And this is why I think we're gonna hear why. Here you have, that's interesting, 400 shekels, 400 years. I don't know if that's a connection, but we'll
400 years plus 40 more in the desert carrying.
right, exactly, yeah.
I wouldn't want to pull that dude.
No, that would be a unique job, but it'd be like a king, it'd be like a pharaoh. You're actually in charge of the pharaoh's bones. Very good observations. Okay, here we go. In verse 1, Sarah lived 127 years. Jim, how long did Sarah live before she died? 127. Very good. Okay, that's an inside joke.
If you checking my memory, it ain't all that good. Oh, yeah.
Okay, these were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died at Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron. So the author is saying Hebron. Remember Hebron. Now, I don't know all about Hebron, but it's in the land of Canaan. So what do we already know about what God has promised Abraham? What did God promise Abram when he was in Ur? Okay, and then he comes out and he goes over across the Mesopotamian Fertile Valley, across the Euphrates, and his father Terah dies. How old was he, Jim? 205. And then goes down into the land to what? Keyword begins with a P. He goes down into the land to possess it. Okay, so he doesn't end up possessing the land like Joshua and the Israelites will. But you have this idea of promise of territory. And so as Abraham goes throughout all of Canaan, it's not Israel yet, and then he goes back and forth to Egypt and Abimelech, and he has the wars and all of these different things. What does he do at different points in his life? Like when he gives God the glory, the victory, of the honor of having been successful in certain ways, what does Abraham do? Sets up altars. So he sets up like little spots, markers, all over throughout the land. And here you have a definite purchase of the land, which was in the presence of the Hittites, right? And so there is to be no doubt in the future, whoever's reading this, that this land was not taken, okay? This land was purchased by Abraham with a price. And back in Genesis 14, do you remember what Abraham or Abram, it's hard to go back and forth between the names. It's always been frustrating in class to try to say Abram or Abraham. He's Abraham right now. So what did he not take from the king of Sodom?
Possessions.
Yeah, he didn't take possessions. And he said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. Because why? The king of Sodom would say forevermore that what? He made Abraham rich. And Abraham says, no, that's not going to happen. So he didn't do that. So he learned a lesson, because who had made him wealthy earlier on in...
God made him wealthy.
Well, God made him wealthy, but through what event? It went down into Egypt. Pharaoh took Sarah, and God said, that's a no-no. And then he sent plagues upon Pharaoh, and then out comes Abraham with all these wealth. Yeah, he comes out with herds and all this stuff, and he's wealthy. You remember that?
Wasn't Abraham?
Yeah, it was. What do you mean it was?
I'm talking about the 400 years they spent.
Oh, no, I'm talking back in Genesis, like,
You're my sister.
right. I'm talking back like in Genesis 12 through 15, 20.
Right, okay.
But he was Abram then.
Huh?
But he was Abram then.
He was what?
Was he Abram then?
Different guy, he was Abraham.
He was a different guy.
But
His
they
name,
did come out with a lot of possessions when they came out
the Exodus.
400 years. Yeah.
Okay, yes, they did. So you have Abram, father. What is his name changed to? Abraham, which means what? Father of many nations. And then you have, what is he called here in Genesis 23?
Abraham.
Well, he's called something else too. Does anybody recognize that? What is he called? It's there in Genesis 23. Yes, my Lord, you are a what? In other words, my master, whatever. You are Prince of God. Prince of God. That's a key element here. What does Sarah's name mean?
Princess.
Ooh, very good. So now there's a prince and princess. So now we're talking about king and queen. And so let me give you this. Here he says, Abram rose up from before his dead. So he went there to weep. So he's, this could have been like to mourn and to weep. So that would have been like something like probably a week to maybe a month. How long did they mourn Jacob's death in Egypt? I think it was like 50 days, right? Okay, so there's a professional, mourning. This is serious. They put on different clothes, ashes on their head. They're in mourning. And so after that, verse 3, and Abraham rose up from before his dead and said to the Hittites, I am a sojourner and a foreigner. I don't know where Sarah's body is. Don't ask me. And I'm a sojourner and a foreigner among you. So I'm an immigrant, basically, is what he's saying. Give me property among you for a burial place or burying place, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. So you have the Hittites answering, hear us, my Lord, you're a prince of God among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. So we have a tomb here, and the tomb is going to be, first you're going to hear Ephron, the son of Zohar, and his name. Okay, do you have anything, Mike, on Ephron?
Not a whole lot, just it means fawn-like.
Fawn-like?
Fawn-like.
Fawn-like, okay. So I think that there is a word that Ephron's name is in Hebrew starts with, and it means something that you and I are very aware of, dust. Dusty. His name is Dusty. In English, it would have been Dusty. Are you beginning to collect metaphors? Okay, so now he's going to ask Dusty, the son of Zohar, wait a minute, where's Zohar? Right. That's what I mean. Where is it? Where was Lot told to flee by the angels, the messengers? To the mountains. But instead he said, wait a minute, can I go to Zoar? Same. Okay, so you have this idea, a little place, little city. He still thinks it's like an Eden, right? He doesn't want to go to the mountains, like the messengers told him. God told him, go to the mountains. No, I'm going to go to Zoar. Okay, so Ephron, Dusty, the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, or Machpelah, however you pronounce it, doesn't matter. Okay, cave in Hebrew is made with the same letters that something else is made with a certain thing that you would recognize if people say in Genesis chapter 2 or 3. What? You know what it is?
This is the paradise word you're talking about?
Almost. We're almost there.
Like a-
Okay. So what were Adam and Eve, what did they dress like before they transgressed? They were naked, right? And that is the idea of, that is where the root word and letters in Hebrew look the same with cave. Cave. So you have Sarah is going into the place of nakedness. And guess where Abraham will go? Right? Where's he going after he dies? Same place. He's going into the place of nakedness. Now, I know you think this is probably a stretch. Well, okay, that's fine. But Machpelah is that cave, and I need to do some research on Machpelah because I forgot about that already, which he owns, but it is at the end of his field. And so the end of his field has some trees. Now, what other city did you hear about or place that has trees? Yeah, Mamre. Has some beautiful oaks or something, the oaks of Mamre, right? And so it's a beautiful place. And so what we're talking about is developing this idea of the authors, the biblical authors here are developing an idea, and you'll see why it'll come together if it's like, I'm kind of skeptical. Okay, well, I'll show you why it comes together in a while. Because it's coming together as a little paradise, which is, the etymology of paradise is?
Well, it comes from the base meaning of the word garden.
Ooh, very good. Did everyone hear that? It comes from the base word, which is a Persian word, I think, which is garden. Paradise is garden. Okay, got more?
It says park, a forest where wild beasts were kept for hunting, a pleasure park,
Yeah.
a garden of trees, also the Garden of Eden.
Oh,
The New Testament, a celestial paradise.
celestial paradise. Okay. So the Septuagint, I think, uses the word paradise for the garden, the word garden in the Genesis account. So you have this idea of where does that come from? Well, it's a beautiful place. It's the place of, if it's the Eden place, then we need to think about Eden again. And where was Eden? In the beginning, where was Eden? It was in the garden, right? Eden was a separate place in the garden, right? It was marked off, right? So you have this idea here that the authors are trying to communicate something to us about, which will later be developed in Old Testament thought and so. Okay, you have Dusty. Dusty is the one who sold the cave, the place of the naked. Are you following me with this Dusty thing?
We got nakedness and we got a garden.
And what about Dusty? Where's Dusty come in? They shall return to dust. Isn't that weird that his name? Yes. Okay. And so you have, again, the repetitive nature on purpose. There's like 3 negotiations with the Hittites that Abraham did not take this by force or anything. In fact, he paid for it on purpose so that people would know that is a special place. Okay? So they said, verse 11, bury your dead. Then Abram bowed down before the people of the land. He said it again. And he said to Ephron, in the hearing of the people of the what? The land. Okay, that land is very important. But if you will hear me, I give the price of the field. Accept it from me that I may bury my dead there. Where does Abraham want to bury Sarah? In the field where the cave is. And it is described in the same symbolic way as the garden where Eden is. Whoa. Why is this place so special? Because Abraham knows he is going there too at some point. Okay? And so he knows that he's going to pay for it. Okay? Now what's the passage that I wanted Jim to remember that came from Eric? 2 Samuel chapter 24. And we're going to read that passage. Eric, are there specific verses that we need to read? What? Just the latter part? Okay, I've got it. I can read it louder for everyone. And it begins where? 18? Okay, let me go to 15. So the Lord sent a pestilence on Israel from the morning until the appointed time, and there died of the people from Dan to Beersheba 70,000 men. And when the angel stretched out his hand toward Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord relented up from the calamity and said to the angel who was working destruction among the people, "It's enough. Now stay your hand." And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing floor of Araunah, the Jebusite. Then David spoke to the Lord. Okay, first of all, why is there this problem in the land? Why is God allowing this to happen to the land? Eric?
Well, it's what David selected the three options given to him.
Right.
As punishment for committing the unauthorized census.
Yeah, punishment for the unauthorized census. So here we go. And what happens? People what? Die. Right? What were the other two options?
Being chased by his enemies for, I want to say, a year or something like that.
Being chased by his enemies for like a year, something like that.
And then, I forget the other, but the other two were man-made calamity, and the pestilence was God. He said he'd rather pull it to the mercy of God than man.
Okay, so we have a situation here. Okay, so we have verse 17, then David spoke to the Lord when he saw the angel who was striking the people and said, "Behold, I have sinned, and I have done wickedly, but these sheep, what have they done? Please let your hand be against me and my father's house." And Gad came that day to David and said to him, "Go, raise up an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite." So David went up at Gad's word as the Lord commanded. And when Araunah looked down, he saw the king and his servants coming out toward him. And Araunah went out and paid homage to the king with his face where? What is Abraham doing to the Hittites? Bowing himself to the ground. No. Let me honor you. This is the same thing. So Araunah is doing this to David, and Araunah said, "Why has my lord, the king, come to his servant?" David said, "What? To buy the threshing floor from you in order to build an altar to the Lord, that the plague may be averted from the people." Then Araunah said to David, what is he going to say? You know what he's going to say, right? "Let my lord the king take the offer of what seems good to him. Here are the oxen for burnt offering, the threshing floor sledges, and the yokes of the oxen for the wood. All this, O king, Araunah gives to the king. It's yours. Take it." Araunah said to the king, "May the Lord your God accept you." But the king said to Araunah, "No, but I will buy it from you for a price. I will not offer" what? "Burnt offerings I will not burn offerings to the Lord my God that cost me nothing. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver, and David built there an altar to the Lord and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. So the Lord responded to the plea for the land. The plague was averted from Israel. Okay, we're back in Genesis 23 with the cave, the place of the nakedness, and then Dusty, who sold it to them. And then Abraham is placing his dead there. And you see here in the latter part of the chapter, so the field of Ephron in Machpelah, which is to the east of Mamre, the field which the cave was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, throughout its whole area, was made over to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the Hittites, before all who went in at the gate of his city. Isn't it interesting that they had gates in cities? Like, did they not have a gate to the entrance of the garden so that people would not be able to enter in? Yes. So Abraham bought this as a possession, and he demanded that he pay the price. 400 shekels. What chapter are we in?
23.
What chapter is right before chapter 23? What does Abraham offer up to God? Right? It's going to cost you everything. Lord, this is all that I have. This is my heir. This is the one you promised. And so you have this in the history of Jesus. This is like you and I going to perhaps grandma's coffee table, looking at the pictures. What's this one? Oh, that's when your great-grandfather, boy, yeah, that's where they lived over here. This is what they did. How did they get over here? Well, they came over, they struggled, boy. But that's where you came from. This is what's going on in Genesis 23 that is setting up the story for later on that Machpelah, that cave of nakedness, is very important to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. And they're going to be buried there because all of a sudden there seems to be a place where Where is Eden? What happened in Eden to begin all this? You got it. What happened? Sin started there, but what started before there? Life. God started life in this garden, in Eden. And for some reason, these patriarchs are being described as buying this cave, buying this field, and this is the place of burial that looks a lot like, symbolically, like what they described in Genesis 1 through 3, the Garden of Eden, the place of life. But it's repeated here, the dead, my dead, my dead. And what are they thinking? Perhaps now, did Abraham have all this figured out? I don't know. It's not necessarily important. But now one last thing before we stop, because it's almost 8 o'clock. What did her name's not Sarah, you got to remember this stuff. Sarah, what did she say to her husband? You got to remember this stuff. What did she say to herself when she was promised or overheard that she would have a child the next year when the angels visited Abram? She laughed, and what did she say in her heart? I'm past the age. I have a barren womb. All this kind of stuff. What else did she say? Shall I have what? Pleasure. Very good. Do you know what I think the Hebrew word is? I could be wrong, but you check me. Shall I have Eden in my old age? Delight, pleasure, paradise. This is where this comes from. And so all of these symbols are being built on, and it's like a musical thing, like our song. What is the song? Did we have it in the songbooks where it's God is love? What is it? The 4-part harmony song? What is that? Huh? The greatest commands. Okay, so how does the greatest command start out? How does it start out? Love one another, for love is of God. He who... that's not right? Well, then tell me what it is. What is the correct thing? Because I've been asking.
That's close enough.
What is the first verse? Somebody look it up. What is the first? Huh? None of us know. We've been singing it for 40 years.
That's the alto part. The alto start. How you said. You just messed up the tune in the middle.
Oh, I just messed it up. Okay.
You got the words right. Just mess up the tune.
Okay, well then I'm good at that. So you have this verse, and then what happens next? What's in the next round?
The bass come in with 1 Corinthians 13. Love bears all
God is
things.
love. God is love.
The tenor, part 3.
I don't care anymore. God is love. So what do you add to that first verse? More. And you hear the harmony, right? And we love to sing it and all that stuff, right? What is going on with these scriptures early on? You're hearing the melody. Of the Lord, right? Whatever. And then you add to it. The scriptures keep adding harmony to it, and you begin to hear a fuller, richer picture of what the song is all about. This is what is going on in Genesis 23. Why is the gospel in Genesis 23? Because we're talking about somebody who comes out of a tomb, out of a cave, that somebody paid for with a big price. And they made sure that his body was put there because God knew that he was coming out of it one day, right? This is the gospel in Genesis 23 and elsewhere. And we see this, and I think that it's so fascinating that somebody understands this, the Jewish authors, and understand this, that they could teach this. And we tend to think there's nothing in the Old Testament that is, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about in general, people like it's the Old Testament. I hope that you've perhaps maybe heard something new tonight. Kind of like Matthew chapter 13, verse 52. What does he say? Matthew says in chapter 13, I believe it's verse 52, like a scribe who brings out things, treasures, old and new. Think about that one.
Jacob was buried in
Machpelah, very good.
I said that Joseph was too, because they kept his bones, and when they fled from Egypt,
Yeah.
they took his bones, and they may have buried him there also.
So we have a lot of stuff that we could use to help people understand this beautiful picture.
I like to start, when I'm teaching somebody, I like to start in Genesis, because you can explain to them the difference between spiritual death and physical death. Death is a separation.
Yeah, very good. So now that we have been reunited with Jesus, let us sing a song to end our Wednesday night service. Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Father, we're grateful for your love. Thank you for Jesus, and thank you for your scriptures. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.